All right, let's talk about one of the biggest, deepest mysteries out there. Something that touches both science and philosophy, the problem of consciousness. So, let me just start by asking you a question. Think about it for a second. What is the one single thing that you are absolutely 100% positive is real? No doubts whatsoever. And there it is, your own conscious experience. The feeling of being you, right here, right now. Everything else you perceive, it could technically be an illusion, right? But the simple fact that you are having an experience, that's undeniable. And yet, this thing that's most real to us is also the thing we understand the least. And that's why we have to approach this not just as another scientific puzzle, but as what it really is, a fundamental mystery, right at the very heart of what it means to be. Here's the thing, pretty much all the experts agree. Whether you're talking to a neuroscientist, a psychologist, or a philosopher, they'll tell you the same thing. We can't ever say we truly understand the mind until we can explain consciousness. It's kind of the final frontier in understanding ourselves. So when you boil it all down, this whole investigation really comes down to two massive goals. First, we've got to figure out what the heck this thing we call consciousness even is. And second, how does our inner subjective world actually connect to the outer objective world of, physics and biology? This brings us right to the heart of the matter, the one central question that really drives all the research and all the debate in this amazing field. And this is it. It seems so simple, but it is unbelievably profound. How does consciousness happen? Where does this inner movie, this feeling of what it's like to be you, actually come from? Well, there are really only two main possibilities that scientists and philosophers are looking at. The first idea is that maybe consciousness is just a basic building block of the universe, like space-time or gravity. It's just part of the furniture. The other idea, which is probably more common, is that it bubbles up from complex, non-conscious stuff. Like all the neurons firing away in your brain. And that fork in the road, it leads us directly to the two major camps, the two big schools of thought that are trying to crack this whole thing open. Okay, so on one side, you have the physicalists. They're convinced that consciousness is a product of the physical world. It's super complicated for sure, but in the end, it's just something the brain does. But on the other side, you've got the dualists. They argue that consciousness has qualities that you just can't boil down to physical stuff. It's something different, maybe even something non-physical. And the physicalists aren't giving up. They totally acknowledge how hard this problem is, but they just see it as a sign that we're in the early innings of a whole new science. For them, it's not a question of if we'll solve it, it's just a matter of when. But that optimism, well, it runs smack into a giant wall. Maybe the single biggest roadblock for any theory of consciousness. It's called the explanatory gap. Let me put it this way. We can map out every single neuron and every electrical signal in your brain when you feel pain. We can have a perfect diagram, but that diagram doesn't explain the feeling of pain itself. There's this huge gap between the physical brain activity and your personal experience. And this gap is so famous, it has its own superstar name, thanks to the philosopher David Chalmers. He called it the hard problem. Okay, so let's break that down. Figuring out which bits of the brain light up when you see the color blue, that's the easy problem. It's not actually easy, but we're getting there. But explaining why all that electrochemical fizzing creates the specific, subjective, personal experience of seeing the color blue, now that is the hard problem. So this is a lot to take in. How can we get a grip on this whole quest? Well, let's try a powerful analogy to tie all these threads together. Imagine that for centuries, we've been cartographers mapping out the known physical world. And just when we think we've got the whole map figured out, we discover this mysterious, uncharted island. And we're calling this island consciousness. Now we have to figure out how it fits on our map of reality. And as these map makers, we've basically got three jobs. First, the what. We have to explore this island and describe what's there. What are its unique, subjective features? Second, the how. We've got to figure out its origin. Did it break off from the physical continent we already know? Or did it pop up from the ocean floor, from something totally different? And finally, the why. We have to understand how this new island relates to the rest of the world we've already mapped. And that really leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? As we keep trying to map this incredible inner world, will we eventually find that it's connected to the physical continent we thought we knew so well? Or are we going to discover that consciousness is, and always will be, an island all its own? The exploration, for now, Continues.